But when we're talking about this movie, I think we're talking more about this as a film instead of the story and everything that goes into making this cinema. And that's why I'm talking about the actors, because I think, this movie, we need to talk about the actors and the cinematography and the directing and
character dynamics,
and the music and all that. Like, that's what we need to talk about. So I'm just going to go through this list and I will just, real quick. And welcome back to the Movie Dads Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
And that is Kyle. Kyle.
Yes, Howie.
That's it. Number 15. So 15.
We're halfway to 30, baby.
Halfway to 30.
Halfway to 30.
10 left to 25. Our first quarter of 100.
One away from 16.
One away from 16. Episode number 15. Big premiere, movie of the week, the new Christopher Nolan masterpiece? Maybe. We'll talk about it. Oppenheimer, right? So we saw this. We saw this in the IMAX, like we were told by Christopher Nolan himself to do.
Yeah, we sat right basically in the spots that he told us to, maybe 2 over.
A, B, C, D, E, F. We were in 6th row. We were in row F, right? Kind of. Yeah, just a little off center. But
I wonder how many people saw that, like just little goofy blurb from him and like followed it, because I in my head was thinking like we had to sit in that spot.
Yeah, well, if you looked at the way the seats filled up, they filled up that way first.
I didn't notice it. I walked in right when it started. So
no, but I mean, like when to buy tickets online, they filled up that way. They filled up that way first. So that's why we were a little more forward and a little more right than would have liked to. But it was still awesome. Good placement. It was still good placement. So if you're not familiar with the format, every other week we do a big premiere movie of the week. We do a new movie like Oppenheimer. And when we talk about it, we do spoiler free, touch base, just kind of initial thoughts on the movie, whether we recommend you should see it or not. And then we give a spoiler warning, and that way you can jump off if you haven't seen the movie yet. Though it's a biopic, you kind of know what happens. It's about biopics are about the journey. Not the destination. Not about
the destination.
That's right.
Well, I'll say the destination that we ended at was not quite where I thought. Like, I mean, we'll talk about it, but
yeah, absolutely. And so, like, I know a lot about Oppenheimer and his background in the Manhattan Project and stuff. So I kind of knew what happened to him. So they were pretty accurate in that. But we'll obviously touch on that more when we get to the premiere information. Yeah. So, yeah. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Recommend us if you enjoy the content. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your neighbors. If you're listening to us on a podcast service, we can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Index. You can also find short videos on our social media pages at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So, Kyle, I've been with my children all week, just me and the kids. My wife went to Jamaica. She's not back yet. Well, she came back for a few hours and then she left for a different trip for the weekend. Still me and the kids.
Surviving? So
if you remember last week, I told you, I said, like, yeah, I was at work. I was out of town all week. I haven't seen my kids. I'm good. I've made up for it. And I've had enough. We're moving on.
I felt that. My kid, my oldest was at a camp with your son, actually, for a couple of days of the week. They came back after like lunchtime, but
yes.
But my wife is also out of town tonight for a girls' night. They wanted a mom's girls gathering. So they went and They got a hotel room downtown at the Cottonwood, which, by the way, I know them well. Got a deal with them at my last job. So I got a little deal for Steph and her people.
Nice.
And anyway, so she's going there just for the night, and it's luckily, I mean, I'm not like totally outnumbered. My 2 oldest went to grandma's, so I have the baby just by myself. So
that's good.
It's my third go around, so I'm not too nervous about it. Yeah, it's ain't my first rodeo,
right?
But I will be keeping an eye on my phone just in case the baby wakes up and we have to clip out of this. So
that's how it goes. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We'd mentioned previously on a previous episode, I am taking my daughter Reagan to the Omaha Comic-Con, OCon as it's called, this weekend. The Omaha Expo. It's got like 4 different names, but it's mostly known as
Comic-Con.
OCon for short, right?
Yes.
So I'm taking her to that tomorrow. She's dressed it up. She's gonna cosplay. I will not.
What's she going as?
She's gonna go as
dude. She is so fucking cool. Every time we have this episode, she's
going
cool
as
one.
Robin from Stranger Things in her Ships Ahoy costume.
God fucking damn right, Reagan. I salute you.
Yeah, I'll wear one of those T-shirts I'm normally wearing when we record the podcast because they'll fit right in. Maybe the DMX.
You should just cut 3 black circles and put them on and just go as 3 Hole Punch Jim from The Office. Did you ever see that? Did you watch The Office?
I've seen. Yeah,
Hole Punch Jim.
That's good.
It's an easy cosplay. So
it is. I'm just probably not going to do it.
I'm glad you reminded me of that because I 100% forgot. I mean, tomorrow we've got baseball in the morning, and then my wife and I are going to go on a date while the kids get watched by the adults or by the grandparents. We're going to get the baby back at like 6 or 7, so it's not too wild. But on Sunday, I will be going with my boys. So
Excellent.
I'm going to take all 3. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Good deal. Well, what's next? What do you think?
All right, let's, how about that one thing that gets us excited?
Let's do it.
Let's jump into our 6 to midnight. These are the things that get us up and excited for this next week or upcoming months or whatever that might be. I think this time around, you've got some stuff to talk about. Maybe not necessarily as something that gets us excited, but it's something we should talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to jump into that.
I'll go first. Yours is more fun. So I'll just go. We'll end on the high note. So I just wanted to talk about, because we usually talk about news or what's coming up or what's going out. So I did a little research because I wanted to talk about the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild AFTRA strikes that are currently ongoing in Hollywood that have shut down production on a lot of movies and TV shows. Because there's a lot of talk out there about what the strikes are about, but there's not a whole lot of details. It's little snippets and things like that. So I did some digging, and I watched a couple interviews. Sean Astin did a really good interview.
Rudy. Samwise Gamgee Rudy.
He did. A couple of the cast members from Succession did an interview. Fran Drescher, who I think is like the president of AFTRA, she had a real fiery speech about it.
I saw a video of her like getting off a bus leading a protest. I truly thought that it was a clip from like the 90s.
The nanny.
Because I was like, is that the nanny?
Yeah.
Why is she's still acting? That was, anyways. Not to get off topic, but
no, you're good. So there's I'm not gonna like get super detailed because there's a lot of things that they're striking about, but the common, I think, thought when it comes to average people like you and me, or the people that might listen.
You calling average?
No, you know what I mean. Like, I think the average person might see like, why are these rich people striking? Right? You get that like entitlement kind of attitude. And I actually saw a meme today that it was actually really accurate by what's going on. And it was the scene from Wakanda in Infinity War where it's Black Widow and Black Panther and Captain America, and they're standing on the front line, right? Or and behind them is all of the like Wakandan tribe members. And the meme said, "This isn't about them," and it pointed at the superheroes. And then at the next picture, it had them removed, and it said, "It's about them," and it just showed the tribes people. So that's what's going on. Is they're basically striking for the main things that they're looking for. Is they're looking for residuals, and they're looking for benefits for the people that don't really make a huge earning. When it comes to this, and some of these actors that aren't like, super famous, or they don't have big starring roles, have shared some of their pay stubs that they're getting for things on streaming services. If anybody's familiar with what residuals are, syndication is probably the most common from like when we were growing up, right? Like a TV show premieres on like ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever. And then it goes into syndication and it's shown in reruns on other channels, right? Maybe it's shown on Nick at Night, or it's shown on like TBS or things like that. And people earn residuals from that, right? They earned dollars for the work that's still being done that they've made years ago. So streaming has obviously done different things with residuals. Some of these actors are making 3 cents or 30 cents a quarter. That's a quarter of the year. Yes, for residuals. That is
wild.
For work they used to do. So that's what they're fighting for. And the benefits, they don't have benefits, right? And they have a union and they have this, and they're fighting for benefits. These are things that they're picketing against companies like Universal and Paramount and Disney and things like that. There was, there was a picture of Bob Iger from Disney sitting on his yacht this week while these people are out at the picket line. And it's very on the nose.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of this is about. And the writers' strike happened first, and they're fighting for very similar things. One of the things
I thought I just assumed those were all together. Like,
well, the writers' strike happened first, and then the actors basically joined them because they're fighting for the new contract too.
So they're all still on strike, writers included.
Correct. Okay. And a lot of things that the writers more than the actors, but both parties are also want something done about AI and the, and the ability for AI to write scripts and that, because, that was there was a lot of chatter about, we can just have AI write scripts for shows or movies or whatnot. And that's part of what this is about. It's not the biggest issue, but it is something that they're fighting on. I read an article, I think it was in Variety, and then Sean Astin actually had a very similar quote in his interview. And he said, listen, SAG-AFTRA doesn't agree on anything. If we had to vote on the color of the sky is blue, there would be people that would be voting against it because nobody ever gets along. And when we voted to strike, it was 100%. He goes, that's never happened in the history of SAG-AFTRA. Wow. So it's going to be around. It's going to be around for a while. We're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get to there can be only 5, because it might affect some of the movies that are coming out late this year, early next year that aren't done. And obviously it's going to affect TV shows and whatnot. So, but that's just kind of wanted to talk about that, because I think it's important for people to know that, yes, these actors are striking and picketing for legit reasons when it comes to fair pay for the actors that aren't making millions of dollars.
Yeah, so, that's
anyway. It's not necessarily a 6 to midnight, but it's
it's important.
It's important news of the week, and I feel like as a movie podcast, you got to mention it.
It could be something that takes us from midnight to 6. So if it kills some of these movies, so
the hands fall off the clock.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you wanted to talk about that, because like you had said, I'm kind of one of the just the average Joes who didn't know like the ins and outs of what was going on, but that there was something going on, and basically all of our shows are going to be really boring for the next couple months or years, depending on how long this takes. So
we'll have a lot less big premiere episodes and a lot more throwback episodes.
Yeah, a lot more 1996 Phantom.
Yeah.
The amount we've done multiple 96, 97 movies, by the way. We just we're sticking in that world.
95. This is the core.
Oh. My 6 to Midnight was San Diego Comic-Con is this week. So usually we get some cool like releases or some, inside scoops on some things. Couple of things for me. I texted you this morning. I'm always talking about like chasing down these like Batman figures that I'm like obsessed with. I'm like a super nerd. And all of the figures that I had chased down was recently was Michael Keaton Batman from The Flash. But the only reason why I wanted to get those is because I wanted the 1989 Batman or something close to it, because we've never got a good figure for it. And so McFarlane took over the rights to DC, and they've been pumping out like great action figures the last like 2 years. Like best Batman figures ever have been pumped out.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they finally started doing some movie like accurate ones, like the Robert Pattinson one, which is awesome. They finally did the Christian Bale one. It was great. They've done the Ben Affleck Justice League, but it was the Justice League. It wasn't Batman versus Superman, which in my opinion is like the best looking Batman.
Mm-hmm.
BVS is just, I want that fucking figure. Anyways, so they unveiled today that there is a like Batman movie, like live action movie 6-pack that they're dropping. Turns out they ended up dropping the pre-order today, and it went sold out in under a second. So I didn't know anything about it. So I did not get it. It was like $120 for 6 figures. And right after it sells out, it goes on eBay for $300, which it's already on eBay for $300. You already know I am going to spend that money. It's annoying. But the 6-pack is awesome. It comes with a Michael Keaton 89 Batman, movie accurate. It comes with the Robert Pattinson Batman and the same Justice League Ben Affleck Batman, except they're a little bit different. Those other figures, they have like molded capes. Like they're not like flowy. They're just like hard capes. And people really want kind of soft cloth capes. And so these are coming out with like realistic soft capes. God, I sound like a nerd talking about this stuff. Yes. But so those 3 are dropping, but they also unveiled that they're doing they're doing a Batman Forever Batman. So we're getting Val Kilmer figure Batman, and we're also getting a George Clooney Batman, which sounds goofy, but they look amazing.
Bat nipples.
Yes, they do have bat nipples. The cool thing that I really thought was like dope, like the packaging looks amazing. They all come in a package, but there's a single bat signal it comes with. And you guys know that for my new Batman, I had my wife print this and I made one with that. So I got my own little bat signal, this little fake thing here. So anyways, it comes with a bat signal, but it comes out with interchangeable faceplates for each one from each
different
movie.
Symbol. Wow.
So it's pretty cool. So basically, cool. It's a very expensive thing. It wasn't really that expensive, but because I have to get on the second market, it's gonna be
6 figures for $120. It's not bad.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they're usually like $25 to $30 or 25 to 32. So
yeah.
The other one is the Christian Bale Dark Knight, which is already out. So really the only new ones are the 89 Kilmer and Clooney.
Is it old 89 Batman or is it in the Flash costume?
It's old 89 Batman. Okay. So with the little weird 3-pronged emblem, like when Batman 89, like for whatever reason, the bottom of his bat signal had like 3 little spikes on it. It was weird. Still waiting on a Batman Returns Batman, which will be my ultimate if that ever comes out. So
anybody at McFarlane Toys listening, you need to make a Batman Returns Batman and a BVS Batman. Also market them for Kyle.
Todd McFarlane. Are you kidding me? People want these figures. They've been waiting for the Batman 89. They want Keaton Batman figures. We want Ben Affleck Batman vs Superman figures. And then you finally give them to us, and you put a pre-order for like 3. How do you put something that's so wanted and coveted? You only make 3. They sell out in 2 seconds. When you're doing a pre-order, people, make the amount of total pre-orders. Don't just put, hey, there's 10, and once those 10 are gone, they're gone. Like, if people want them, fucking let me pre-order my Batman. Anyways, clip that, send it to
Flip
McFarlane.
the table, get
tag him in it. God.
That's the most passionate you've ever been on this podcast.
I am. I'm not. I've just really. Was an action figure kid, and over the last like 2 or 3 years, I've really rolled into like, all right, I've got expendable income, and there's cool figures. So, another thing that I thought was cool that came out from San Diego Comic-Con that I think you will like, or maybe think is cool, is a comic book series that's coming out. It's Justice League versus Godzilla versus King Kong.
There you go.
It's going to be wild. I don't know what that's all about, but it sounds pretty crazy. It looks like the Godzilla and King Kong from the recent movies. It looks awesome. So lots of other stuff at Comic-Con, but those are things that stood out to me.
I'm sure maybe when Comic-Con's over, San Diego obviously being the big dog. It's bigger than Omaha.
You could fit 400 Omaha Comic-Cons into one building of the San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sure there'll be more that'll come out that we can talk about next week.
For sure.
So that'll be good.
Went on a Batman rant.
You're good, man. That's good. I like it. Get after it. It's a lot more fun than what I was talking about. So anyway, that takes us to our big premiere movie of the week, the 2023 Christopher Nolan Oppenheimer.
Epic.
That's a good word. Epic. The reviews are very positive for the movie. It's been very well received. Obviously, we chose Oppenheimer over Barbie. Sorry about it. Barbenheimer, if you will.
Finally get a date with my wife, and guess what movie she's making me take her see, because she's been wanting to see this since she was a kid.
You're not mad about it. You're going to like it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, that's what our next episode is going to be.
No, it's not. You might not be like...
No, it's not.
You might not be like, outgoing excited, but, I'm sure part of you's like, I want to see what this is all about.
Yeah.
That's how I'd go see it. I don't know, problem.
Yeah.
We should have seen that after Oppenheimer, because, man, that movie is heavy.
Dude, so heavy.
It's a heavy movie. And, what happens, right? We talked about, in our intro, it wasn't about the destination. It was about the journey. There's no spoilers when we talk about, Oppenheimer was the one that led the Manhattan Project, which built the atomic bomb, which ended World War II. Basically, it was the creation of nuclear weapons in our world, right? So the movie is about his early life a little bit. They touch on that at the beginning, who he is, what makes him tick, his background, his past, tells the story of the Manhattan Project and the people involved. And it also talks about the aftermath, right? There's a lot about that too. There's 2 stories going on at the same time, right? The before and the after, but they kind of are told through intersecting chapters.
Yeah, they really did a good job. I mean, it kind of alluded to that earlier, is that the movie did not end where I thought it was going to, and it wasn't necessarily about what we all just assumed it was about. I mean, yes, that was a big major part of it, but there was just I loved that they did that, kind of going of showing him basically early years of him, of how unique he is and how uniquely intelligent he is, but also, in that world of astrophysics and theoretical physics and things like that. Like you'd think those people are already kind of like not outskirts people, but they're like, that's a very niche group of people. And him within that group was like his own, like he was even more out of the box than them. So I thought they did a really good job with like the early years showing just kind of his upbringing, and also like that, not necessarily his upbringing, but how he slowly stumbled into basically creating the world changing thing that he did.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, it talks. There's a lot. It's like we said, it's a heavy film. It's a very adult film, and I don't mean that I mean that both ways, but like it talks about politics and communism and all those things, right? Like it talks about all the things that were happening at that time frame. It talks about war, but you never see war in the movie and things like that. So it's heavy. It's incredibly well made. We knew it was going to be, right? Like Christopher Nolan has never had a dud ever.
Yep.
He basically hits at least a double every time he's at bat. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, he does. That is a great analogy. I'm really into baseball and betting right now, so that just hit right on the head.
Every time he's at bat, he's going extra bases. There's no average movies in the man's catalog. So listen, I would recommend you go see it. I would recommend you go see it in theaters 100%. I think it's a very loud movie. It's, I'm going to be real honest about the IMAX part. Like it was cool. I don't think it was the special effects pieces were enough to where I would say you have to see it in IMAX. But the thing is it was filmed in IMAX.
Yeah.
Right? There's these clips and videos and pictures. The film reel is 11 miles long. Yeah. Because it was filmed in IMAX cameras. So if you want to see it the way that Christopher Nolan, the filmmaker, intended it to be seen, find an IMAX theater.
That was my suggestion. It was just like, you don't have to see it in IMAX, but it was filmed. It was like, it's the first film ever that has black and white IMAX video, or like that was really cool. I thought something else that was cool that I found out after watching, just when I was like doing some nerdy digging about movie and like practical effects, because they talked a lot about not wanting to do CG like as much as possible. Yeah. So they did a lot of practical effects, even like with the explosion, like particles and things like that.
Yes.
Something else that was cool. So there's like this really old camera back when from the actual Manhattan Project that was just like this giant, like 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot box that is a like camera designed to be able to like withstand major explosions. They could try to make sure that they were getting film of the bomb going off, and they used that same type of camera for a couple of the shots. So anyways, so I thought that was really cool. For sure, a movie theater movie, like it's going to be good when it comes out to watch it at home, but I think the experience, like they go kind of hand in hand. It's what makes it a cooler movie.
Yeah, that makes absolutely. Sense. So we both recommend it's a theater watch for sure. I'll tell you this, like we're going to do the spoiler warning now. It's not your traditional spoiler warning because again, like we're going to talk about the movie, but the biggest spoilers that are going to come with this are probably people that are in the movie that you didn't know were in this movie.
Yes.
That's going to be the biggest spoilers we're going to talk about. If you don't really care about that, I mean, you can listen. Like we all know what happens. We won the war. So but this is your chance. If you want to skip ahead, spoiler warning, move ahead. This is it. Because we're going to get into the details. So
get out. Get out.
this, we talked about this being a heavy movie, like, and I'm glad we didn't record right afterwards, because I wanted to process, because
dude, yes,
this was another, I wanted to, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but like, I talked about how The Flash was like the movie I wanted to see this summer, right? It was my my most anticipated. And like, my problems with The Flash were based on disappointment, because there were so many things wrong with it. My second movie for the summer that I had the highest hopes for was this. Like, this was the one I was like, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so it's great. Like, out of the gate, it's great. The question becomes, how great is it going to be? And it's one of those movies that it's exactly 3 hours long. Like, it's 3 hours and 0 minutes. And it didn't feel like 3 hours. It felt long, but not like that long.
Yeah. Good point.
Because there's so much. And I'm glad I got to sit and think about it, because is it like, Christopher Nolan's made so many great movies. Is it his best movie? It might be. Like, it's probably his most
complete movie.
I don't know what words I almost want to say, like, it's his most awardy movie for sure. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Listen, there's movies that are coming out in the second half of this year that are going to be nominated for Oscars, and there's going to be actors that are nominated for Oscars. If you told me tomorrow that this wins Best Picture, Christopher Nolan wins Best Director, I would say I 100% don't disagree with that. I would. Yeah. I'm going to have a hard time believing there's going to be something like this that's going to get made in the back half of this year.
Yeah. Or even Cillian Murphy as like Best Actor.
Right. I mean, I would tell you right now, he's going to be nominated for sure. He should be the favorite. I know there'll be great performances that'll come out that'll blow people away. Listen, Robert Downey Jr. is probably going to get nominated for an Oscar. He was good, phenomenal.
I didn't realize how like integral to the movie he was. Like, I didn't realize how much he was going to be in the movie.
Well, that's because there's so much. Like, the trailers, you see, he's like, the trailers are mostly Cillian Murphy, Matt Damon's in a lot of the trailers.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., you see like 1 second. You see Emily Blunt for 1 second. Like, there's a little glimpse of Kenneth Branagh, and there's a glimpse of Florence Pugh in the trailer. And these, man, but the cast is just dynamite.
You and I think multiple times were like holy crap, holy shit, holy shit, they're in this movie too. Like, constantly, all the way up until closer to the end of the movie.
In the trailer too. Like, I remember seeing Josh Hartnett in the trailer. Yes. But he's like in it for 2 seconds, and you're like, was that Hartnett? And
I never saw him in the trailer. I must have just not picked that up. And that was the biggest one to you that I turned. I was like, oh my God, Josh Hartnett's in this movie. Yes.
Yeah. And
let's go.
Well, the biggest one for me, and since we're in the spoiler part, was Rami Malek.
Dude.
What?
Yes.
He's in it for like 3 scenes. He's in the entire movie 3 scenes. This is an Oscar-winning actor who's in this movie for 3 scenes, but the third scene he's in,
boom, you're hitting it right on the nose.
Incredibly vital to the movie.
When he showed up, I thought, like, when he popped up, he was the most like, just like not thug number one, but in terms of like importance, he felt very much like just a guy number 2. Like, he was just there for the scenes. He didn't even
exactly
talk.
What he was. You're right.
And then all of a sudden, and so I think in my head, kind of was thinking that of like, oh, that's a huge actor, and they have him as just like a stand-in side person, and then he shows up at the end, and just like, man, he was crucial.
Christopher Nolan's known for using the same actors in a lot of different movies, right? Like, obviously, Christian Bale, 3 Batmans, The Prestige, right? Like, Michael Caine, Prestige, Batman's. Like, he's in all. I'm trying to think of who. Oh, Kenneth Branagh. He's in this. He was the bad guy in Tenet. He uses a lot of the same people Oh, and Cillian Murphy obviously was in all the Batmans, this, and then Inception, right? Like he's in all of them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's so many freaking famous people in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
All it proves to you, people want to work for Nolan, and they want to be in his movies. I mean, like, you talk about people like I said he hits at least a double every time he's up to bat, right? Like, you talk about Steven Spielberg of like the 70s and 80s, right? Like we're talking about Jaws, and we're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we're talking about E.T., and like it's like that. That's where we're at with Christopher Nolan, because he keeps churning out these epics that people want to be in. And I'm just like, there are people in this movie that are barely in this movie. Jack Quaid, anybody who knows him, he's in The Boys. He's Dennis Quaid, and he's Dennis Quaid's son. He's the bad guy in like one of the Scream movies. Spoiler alert, like the 5th one. But he's in a bunch of movies. He's like the main actor with Carl Urban in The Boys. He's in this movie for 10 minutes. I mean, you know who I was really impressed with was Jason Clarke. Do you know who Jason Clarke is?
So which one was he in the movie?
He's like when they're doing the basically like the closed door, small little room, like trial almost. He's the lead prosecutor. He was Jason Clarke was like the dad in the Pet Sematary remake. He was in Zero Dark 30. He was John Connor in the stupid Terminator movie that made John Connor the bad guy. Remember that? So that's Jason Clarke. He was freaking awesome, as you hated him in this movie.
He was awesome.
I mean, like,
I really loved him in the movie with Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf. Lawless. He was really good.
Oh, yeah. That I forgot about that. He's a really good actor, and this is like I was happy to see him do something like this, because he hasn't had a huge like major moment in a while, and this was definitely it. So I'm just going to read off some of these people. Cillian Murphy obviously plays Oppenheimer. He's fantastic. He's awesome. Emily Blunt blew me away. In the previews, it's just like, oh, she plays his wife, right? Well, it turns out like Kitty Oppenheimer was a raging alcoholic that like hated her children.
Bro, that was like that was hard to watch. Yeah. And also, like, they go into, I know you're going to talk about actors right now, but like that specifically, when he takes his kid, like he comes home and it's very clear that this baby has been screaming for probably hours and she's drinking. And then the following scene is him taking his son to like his friend's house.
Yes.
That was really hard to watch, of like,
yes,
I could never imagine doing that. But one of the things I thought was just like fascinating, and it's such a gray area, was they talked about like the importance of how special Oppenheimer was. And the guy was like, I know this is wrong in the scheme. He didn't say these words, but this was kind of what he was insinuating. Like, I know this is wrong in the grand scheme of life of parent and son, that you're dropping your kid off for me to take care of because you're a bad parent. But your contribution to the world and intelligence is so special that it comes with a price and a cost. And I know that, and I'm going to take care of your kid for you so you can do that. That was like,
yes. So this isn't, I don't feel like we're doing our traditional like movie talk like we do with every other episode we've done, because everybody knows the major parts of the story. Everybody kind of knows how that works. Yeah. The parts about Oppenheimer, like, was he a communist? Was he not? They took away his security clearance. They kind of blacklisted him for a while after this. That's probably the stuff people don't know as well. I mean, our generation,
at all.
The older generation probably knows that stuff, that, they used to watch the telly and read the
The telly.
Yeah. But I feel like
hey, ma'am, I'm here. Call the operator.
Give me 626. But when we're talking about this movie, I think we're talking more about this as a film instead of the story and everything that goes into making this cinema. And that's why I'm talking about the actors, because I think, this movie, we need to talk about the actors and the cinematography and the directing
character dynamics,
and the music and all that. Like, that's what we need to talk about. So I'm just going to go through this list and I will just, real quick. Obviously, we know Matt Damon's in it. He plays General Leslie Groves. He kind of is the one that recruits Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project. He has a big part in it. Robert Downey Jr. is Louis Strauss. Basically was the one that got Oppenheimer's security clearance taken away. He plays a very sympathetic person at the beginning, and then it turns out he's a real giant piece of shit. And he is like, if there's a main antagonist to J. Robert Oppenheimer, it's Louis Strauss, and the whole story that interweaves like with the Los Alamos part, it's this. And
I had no idea about any of that, so for me, I was like, holy shit, like this was there are so many freaking red freaking threads with pins on things to try to keep track of who did what and what's going on.
So like when I knew this movie was coming out and I looked at the cast list and I saw Robert Downey Jr., but I knew who Louis Strauss was. So I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to see Robert Downey Jr. sink his teeth into a good villain role. And
and he sunk those teeth in.
Yes, he did. We talked about Kenneth Branagh, Rami Malek's in it, Josh Hartnett's in it, Florence Pugh is like Oppenheimer's ex-girlfriend / mistress. There's a lot there with her. You see a lot of her. David Krumholtz was really good in this, and he was a surprising, like he's like his best friend, kind of deal.
Dude, freaking little brother Affleck was in the movie.
Yes. So that one was like, you knew when that scene showed up and they didn't show the guy's face, you knew it was somebody, right? Like, and then it's him sitting in the chair and you're like, oh, it's Casey Affleck. And like, they have it kind of intertwined, the part where Oppenheimer meets him, and then Matt Damon's in a separate scene that happens after, talking about him, and they intertwine them together, and how much
he's like, holy shit, you sat in a room with him
and you lived?
Did what?
Yeah.
And then they keep clipping back and forth, so you're like, oh god, what's going on? This is such an unassuming conversation. But then Matt Damon shares that he said he's gonna skin him alive.
Matthew Modine, David Dastmalchian, Tom Conti as Albert Einstein was really good, and he's only in 2 really small scenes. Talk about Jack Quaid. Josh Peck, Drake and Josh, was in it.
I forgot about him.
Olivia Thirlby. Dane DeHaan was like the colonel that worked right under Matt Damon. And we've talked about Dane DeHaan before in his shitty Green Goblin, but he was really good.
Yes.
Such a snake, right? And then he's the one that like helps Strauss. Yeah, it's wild. Alden Ehrenreich as the Senate aide, like he's listed as the Senate aide. Freaking Han Solo in the Solo movie, like, and he's great in this. Jason Clarke, we talked about. Tony Goldwyn's in it, and Alex Wolff, and all these people that you'd see them and you'd be like, oh, I know who that is, right? All these people, James Remar, like, and there's a ton of other people in this movie too. And it's just the amount of people that you see in this movie and you're like, I know who that is. That's so-and-so. And, and then there's the one great big cameo as President Truman, which, since we're in the spoiler part, we'll talk about it, but it's one of the greatest living actors of our time. It's Gary Oldman as Harry Truman.
Gary Oldman.
I was thinking about, like, you remember the movie, God, was it Shakespeare in Love, where like Judi Dench was like the Queen of England or something, like,
yes. Yep.
And she's in the movie. She's in the movie for less than 10 minutes. And I think she won an Oscar for it. Remember that in the 90s? And like, I'm thinking like of Gary Oldman in this movie as Harry Truman, who's in one freaking scene. And like, you're just laser focused on him because he's so freaking good. And, you know, how much of that meeting is portrayed as true, I don't know. You would think it's pretty accurate because the rest of the story is pretty dang accurate. But Harry Truman basically thought Oppenheimer was a crybaby.
Yeah, that was.
They called him that.
Brutal, man. And like after like the whole movie at that point, it was like they had really, really sunk in how important to like mankind the work that was done.
Yes.
And so for him to like finally, he's at a moment where he's speaking with the president. The president's like, don't ever bring that crybaby back in my office. It's like, oh shit.
Because Oppenheimer, and that's a big focus of the movie. Like they have this goal, they have to build the bomb. Like that's what we have to beat we have to have this bomb to win the war, and this and that. And then like they talk about after Germany surrenders and Hitler's dead, that do we still need it?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now we have to, and they're like, well, Japan's, you know, that's a different, it's not the same. Right. And then it becomes more like, well, now that we're almost there, we have to finish. We have to be the ones that win this race. We have to be the ones that get this bomb first. And then after the bomb drops on Hiroshima, Oppenheimer there's this great scene where it's like everybody's celebrating at Los Alamos. They're having this big, like, and he goes to give a speech and like everybody's cheering, and then it goes dead silent while he's talking. Right. And you can see him, they're all still cheering, but it's him in his head. And then they're all crying or screaming or throwing up. And that's where the movie shifts. And that's where you see Oppenheimer shift. It's no longer I've succeeded. It's what the hell have I done?
Yes. Oh my God, dude, you just hit it. And I think you really touched on it too. What I think was just like masterclass with this movie and how they portrayed it was the whole time you're like you're rooting for Oppenheimer. He's the super intelligent person. He's outside of the box. He's trying to do something that nobody believes is possible, and you know he's going to do it, or like we're hoping that he does it. And he brings basically the best minds from all over the world onto this thing to complete something that is humankind changing. But it's like, it wasn't even like, to me, it felt less of like they got to the point where they were going to blow it up and then that was where it flipped. It almost felt like they got close to like it was going to be inevitable. And that was when you started to see just like a little chink in Oppenheimer's armor of like, maybe this isn't something that we should be doing, or like maybe this might just, and then it's kind of talked about because they hadn't blown up the bomb yet, or the test bomb, when they found out that Germany was defeated. So then that was when they started really like, is this something we even need? And Oppenheimer, you could very much tell, like, it was almost like he knew it wasn't right, but this was his life's, like, this is the culmination of his life's work. And so it was like the train got moving so fast that at this point there was no stopping it.
Correct.
And it just, like, they did such a good job with that, and slowly like switching the mindset and like where the weightiness of the movie was. That was where I thought this whole thing was going to be like the whole movie leading up, basically like Dunkirk, where there's a ticking clock at all times. And then at the end of the movie, we get the bomb, and like that was it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't it. And
no.
all the stuff after was so, like,
I almost feel like that was more important to the story, was everything that happened after.
Yes.
This isn't about the bomb.
Yes.
This is about the way the bomb affected him.
Yeah, for sure. And everything in the beginning of the movie, you think it's all like trying to just lead up to him creating this bomb, but really every little step of the way through the years, it all played a role at the end when they were investigating him in this kangaroo court that they set up to basically make him the scapegoat where he couldn't get out of it. And it was, you said it perfectly. Like when we left, like multiple times when I was walking around the house at home that night, it was like, I literally said to my wife, like, man, that was a lot. Like there was a lot to digest and a lot to think about in terms of like, just like, it's just so much.
I could see people watching that movie and having different thoughts at the end, because there are people that are going to watch this movie and they're going to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, we won, and like, yeah, we needed to do it. Like it had to happen. And then I think there are people that will watch this movie and they'll be like, man, that's rough. You hear soldiers talk about coming back from war and like the fact that they know they've had to kill people and what it does to them. This man was basically responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people.
For sure.
And like what that does to you. I will say one other thing I thought when it comes to his portrayal of Oppenheimer, he plays it very sympathetic, even though he's a womanizer. He's like, he cheats on his wife and it's open, but he plays it very sympathetically. Even before the end, when you realize what this does to him, and I think it's just how good of an actor he is. There's parts where it's like he doesn't like conflict at all, and he tries to avoid it wherever he can in this movie. But at the same time, he has this drive to succeed that is like, it's crazy. He even like, there's a part at the beginning where it's like he's going to kill a professor was he at Oxford or Cambridge, and he's going to poison him, and then he like changes his mind at the last minute, and it's wild because he still plays the role super sympathetic because he seems like a horrible person, but then at the same time you realize he's not at the end because of the weight of what he's done. It's acting's a masterclass all around. There's nobody that did bad acting in this movie. Like they all acted. Matt Damon was great. Like everybody was great. Listen, the scene where they do the test bomb, right? Like we don't see the bomb get dropped on Japan, which is, that's great. Probably don't want to see that anyway, but the scene where they do the test bomb, I'm like on the edge of my seat and I know what happens. Like it's because the music and the way they're showing these guys' faces, like the one guy runs outside at the last minute, like Josh Peck's the guy that pushes the button, and like how he keeps hesitating and he like pulls his hand back. Like
super shaky.
My God, what am I about to do? Like it's insane. The way it's done, it's masterful. That's the word I can only think of. It's masterful. When it comes to a piece of cinema, this is phenomenal. Like are there parts that are slow? Yeah. Is there things in this movie that like probably didn't need to be in it? Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man, like music, directing, cinematography, and acting all in one. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, it was good. And I was kind of shocked because Hans Zimmer was not doing the score. So I was a little nervous about that, but they still hit a home run. It's a very in-depth, like thinker movie, not in like an Inception, like trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but more Tenet. Of a, yeah, for sure. Like, and even Dunkirk was like that too. It's more in terms of like the weight of morality and weighing like the importance of, for our country, for the world, for him personally, like, like achieving something that will set him basically to be the father of the atomic bomb, or basically the father of something that's never been done. They said there was a great line where they said Oppenheimer is about to take like the combined knowledge from 3 centuries to create this thing.
Yeah.
Like like that. I thought that was just like such a huge thing of like, anyways, I thought I 10 out of 10 for me in terms of rating. Like this movie was phenomenal. I don't know how much I would go back and rewatch it. Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird to say.
This is one of those movies that like, the way it played out, obviously when I went into it, it didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out, like with the intersecting stories and things like that. I want to rewatch it because of that, because now that I know what's, I want to rewatch it because I know. And so I'm going to give this a 9.5 because of that, because I want to see it again. And I want, now that I know the journey, I want to see where it goes. Now that I know how it gets, I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's
no,
like
totally does.
These are two totally different ends of the spectrum. But like when I watched Spider-Man, right? Like I think I gave Spider-Man a 9 or 9.5 the first time, and then like when I went back and rewatched it, now that I knew what was happening and I could pay more attention to the details and less to the story, I realized like how masterful that movie really was with the art and the music and all that. And I feel like this movie is going to do the same thing. I'm going to give it a 9.5 right now. It's not my favorite Nolan movie. Is it his best? Is it his best movie? It might be.
That I could not have said that any better. Like it's not my favorite Nolan movie,
right?
But in terms of quality of cinema, this is like his this is his master class. I guess
it lived up to the thoughts that I had this movie would be, like bar none. I would say if I was a betting man, I would bet right now this is Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor at the Oscars. I don't know how it's not, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to have to get blown away in the back half of this year.
Giggity.
Biwa.
Bazinga. Okay.
So
love that.
Oppenheimer, go see it. Try to see it in large format. I would recommend IMAX. I bet Dolby's pretty dope too, though, especially if you're sitting towards the front. But filmed in IMAX, see it the way the filmmaker intended. 10 from Kyle, 9.5 from me. Highly, highly recommended. That's it. That takes us into my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
So this week, we piggybacked on something we did last week. So last week, we gave our top 5 movies of the year so far. And this week, we decided to do our top 5 movies we're most looking forward to, our most anticipated movies in the back half of 2023. Yes. We say back half, it is the end of July, right? Like I always look at the movie season as February through July and then August through January, because those award movies that like all come out at the end of December that are showing in like LA and New York, but wide release in January. Hey, those are January movies in the Midwest, Buster.
Damn right. Damn right. I agree. I was really glad we did this because one, I didn't realize how many of these were coming out this year, and it like got me pumped of like, oh shit, that's coming out in 2 months. Let's go.
Right.
And we talked about maybe there's more than 5 for each of us. So
this is like, it's like a list of a whole bunch of movies that we try to rank, right? Like that. And we talked about this before we started recording. There are movies that I want to put on this list that I'm not sure we're going to get because of the strike, right? Like it was announced not that long ago that they had moved Deadpool 3 from May of next year into the holiday season this year because they want to get that movie moved up, right? Was the talk, I think. So they moved that one way up, but it wasn't done. And boy, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I should we save the like excess movies till after our top 5 or before?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take it first. Let's jump into, for me, most anticipated movies still to be released of 2023. Number 5, Killers of the Flower Moon. This movie is Leo and Robert Downey Jr. It's
no.
Not Robert Downey. I'm an idiot. Why am I thinking? Why did I say Robert Downey Jr.?
Because you were
not Robert De Niro.
You were thinking of Oppenheimer. It's all right.
Yeah, that's true. Robert De Niro and Leo are in a movie that it just looks incredible. The director is Martin Scorsese, which is like one of the greatest directors of human history. So, yeah, so it's and two of the greatest actors of all time. So it should be a really good movie. I'm excited for it. Looks good. Number 4, The Creator. This movie looks freaking awesome. It's made by the people who did Star Wars Rogue One. It looks very Rogue One-ish. It's like Rogue One meets Terminator, like Skynet meets like Blade Runner kind of vibes that I got. So Denzel Washington's son, I believe, is the main actor.
John David Washington. Ken Watanabe's in it. Which if you've never
freaking love Last Samurai.
That movie's so good.
So good.
He's amazing.
And he is amazing in it. So The Creator, number 4. Number 3, I just learned about this movie last week, but it's jumped up to one of my most anticipated movies, Napoleon. Did not know that was coming out this year. I thought when the trailer dropped that was coming out next year. So I saw that it's coming out in a couple months. I'm like, fuck yeah. Number 1 and 2 was hard for me to have these in the order that I have them. But there's reasons. So number 2, my most anticipated movie of this entire year is Dune Part 2. I love the first Dune. Villanueva. I've talked about Blade Runner and just being so excited about that movie forever.
I had your number 1 and number 2 picked, and I didn't know which order. And I wonder if I got it right.
So Dune Part 2, I cannot wait. It's made by one of my favorite directors and cinematographers like ever. And the first one was so good. I cannot wait for that movie. And then number 1, I have listed as number 1 because I feel like this is like a generational movie to my family, to me and my kids. The new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is my number 1.
I pegged you correctly.
Giggity. We're getting a new theatrical Ninja Turtle movie that very much feels like the director and writer get the characters from when I grew up and watched them, but also from a standpoint of like, it's going to be fresh and it's the first time we're going to get teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that teenagers are playing the turtles. But it looks really good, but also like my kids are so stoked for it. We watch the trailer. That's the thing they want to watch before bed every night for like the last month. Like, can we watch Ninja Turtle trailer? So like, I feel like this is like not a passing of the torch from me to them, right? But like they're getting their generation's Ninja Turtles, and I'm stoked to see that in theaters. I don't think I mentioned this on the last episode, or maybe time frame didn't work out, but Grayson went on his trip to go to the theme park the other week, and Parker and I went to get him a toy because he didn't get to go on this theme park trip. And we walked in and they had just put on the shelves all of the toys for this movie. So like all 4 turtles, the turtle van. And like as a kid, I owned all of the turtles. At some point got one here, one there. We didn't have the turtle van, but friends did. And like it felt like I was doing something that I never got to do as a child, like go to the store with my dad and buy all the turtles. And it was just a really cool experience. He got all 4 turtles. We got the turtle van. We came home. We played with them all day, and now they're Parker's favorite toy. So, anyways, this movie, it's a goofy kid movie, but for me, I feel like it's important, and I'm excited to see it. It looks really good, and my kids are so stoked for it. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's my top 5.
I dig it, man. We had 3. We had 3 that matched, so it's pretty good.
Nice.
I would say. Yeah, there was a lot of movies to pick from. There's a lot of movies that I'm really excited to see. Most of these are on this list because I've seen the trailers for them now, and I've told this before. I'm a big trailer guy. Like, trailers get me hyped. Like, I'll get hyped for a movie knowing it's getting made, knowing it's coming out. But when I see a trailer and it's well done and it's great, man, like, let's go. I'm ready to dive in. So that's why some of these are on here as opposed to others. And one of these is on this list after a trailer I saw for the first time when we saw Oppenheimer. So I'll get to that.
Oh, shoot. I saw that as I was looking through movies coming out, and I was like, ooh, that's either going to be on mine or Howie's list.
Yeah. So my number 5 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Like, we're 2 weeks away. I'm Jones. Like, I'm taking Dez. Reagan wants to go. I said, Reagan, you ain't going to this one. Like, I'm taking Dez. Like, this is me and him.
Let's
get
go.
in. We're gonna go see Ninja Turtles. He had some birthday money. His birthday's this week, and he had some birthday money, and he went and he bought freaking the Michelangelo headband with the nunchucks and throwing stars, and then he bought 2 action figures because he had enough money left over. So he bought Michelangelo, who's his favorite, and then he bought the Rocksteady figure, and they're pretty awesome figures too. So
that's awesome.
He's excited, and I'm excited. We're ready to go. That's at number 5. So number 4, this is the one I added today, and this is because of the trailer we saw during Oppenheimer. I knew this movie was coming out. I hadn't seen the trailer yet. Like, I didn't know it was coming out this year. I didn't have a date on it. Basically, they'd announced that they were going to make a sequel to The Exorcist. Like, and Ellen Burstyn's coming back to play, she's older now, right? And she's going to help. Leslie Odom Jr. is looks like the main character in it. Listen, like, he's the best part of Hamilton. I don't care what anybody says. He was the best actor in that freaking movie.
He is so freaking good in Hamilton.
He is. And
wait for it. God, so good.
So when I saw him, and like, I didn't know what the trailer was when it started. I'm like, oh, Leslie Odom Jr. and it looks like it's a horror movie. And then the trailer is phenomenal because they play like 2 notes, and you're like,
yeah,
that sounds familiar. And then this girl walks into a church, and she's like covered with blood, and you can tell it's like a possession movie. It looks like it starts off as like a kidnapping crime thriller kind of thing. Oh yeah, yes. Total vibes. And then she's like possessed, and she's in a church, and she's like saying all sorts of crazy stuff.
Covered in blood and stuff.
And and then you see her possessed, and there's 2 of them. And then the music starts playing, and you're like, holy shit, it's The Exorcist.
Yes. And I was we both had that same reaction of because they just played like 1 or 2 notes of it. And you're like, it's almost like we're conditioned to be like, I know what that is, but I
know that song. What's that song?
I don't know what that is. I'm like, is that Halloween? Like, what is that? And then the second that it kicked on, it was like, oh, fuck, this is The Exorcist. Let's go.
Yeah,
so I do think that looks great.
It does. I'm a big horror movie guy. I'm psyched. Number 3, I had Killers of the Flower Moon. Just nice. like listen, Martin Scorsese, like, he's another guy that pretty much hits doubles, at least, I mean, the guy makes a fun mob movie, and he finally wins his Best Picture award when he made The Departed. Mm-hmm. Like, that's crazy to me. I still think Goodfellas is his best movie. I think it should have won all the awards that year. It's a travesty it didn't. I'm mad about it still. We talked about this last week. Like, there's movies that never should have won Best Picture awards over another movie. Man, Goodfellas deserved it. I'm mad about it. That movie is it's the greatest mob movie ever made. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. It's fantastic. He is a phenomenal he's a phenomenal director and writer. Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 2, I have Rebel Moon. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon at number 2.
Guess what I had as my one to talk about
here
after
listen.
I almost tied it with the creator for me.
Listen, Zack Snyder is a good filmmaker. I don't care what people say. Dawn of the Dead is fantastic. If you've never seen Dawn of the Dead, 300 is amazing. Like there are movies this man's made. Man of Steel is a great movie. I don't care what anybody says.
Like there's
Watchmen is fantastic. I think Watchmen is highly, highly, highly underrated, as well as it's 100%. If you've read that graphic novel and then you watch that movie,
you should love it.
So well done. He made one major change to the book, but it works.
Yes,
it works on film. I think the way, and if you know, right? Like
and if you've read Frank Miller's 300, like he did the same thing. He took a comic book and made like iconic moments from that into a movie. It was fucking awesome.
He made comic book movies like he did
for sure.
Listen, so Rebel Moon is it's a space epic. It's going to be on Netflix. Apparently, they're going to release it in theaters for a limited time.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was like end of December Netflix.
It is.
Keep in mind this was originally a Star Wars movie. It was supposed to be a Star Wars movie before Disney purchased Lucas.
So this is basically Zack Snyder making a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
That's what Rebel Moon is.
That's from his own mouth. Like it is widely known that he had written a Star Wars movie, and then because Disney bought Lucasfilm and they went in a different direction. So this is so he changed obviously things so it's not Star Wars characters or world. It's its own self-contained. But like it was all supposed to be Star Wars. So I'm gonna, in my head canon, I'm gonna be looking at this as like this is an alternate universe Star Wars.
It's a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, there's literally lightsabers in the trailer. Like, come on, it's fucking Star Wars.
Anyway, I'm pretty jacked for it. So number one, and again, this was a movie that like I knew very little about, and then I saw the trailer, and it got me hyped, and then I saw the second trailer, and now I'm ready. I would shut up and take my money. The Creator.
Oh, nice.
Is my most anticipated movie. It's a September release. I don't have to wait that long. You talked about it already. Man, it looks good. That's all I can say.
It looks good.
Man, it looks good. I really hope it doesn't suck. Let's just put it that way.
The trailer is awesome, and they have like a cover version of Dream On.
I think that's Steven Tyler audio, and I think they just changed the background music.
That Dream On, I think makes the trailer like 100 times cooler. It's still an awesome trailer, but that music is fucking awesome.
Yeah, you've talked about that before, and I'm with you 100%. Music can do a whole lot of good and a whole lot of bad in a movie.
Dude, and it can take a good movie and make it great. And it can take a great movie and make it not so good if you have horrible music. So,
and that's why we're the right people to host a podcast about movies. Is because we know cinematography and acting and music are all the things that are important to making a movie good.
God damn right. Not just that they have Marvel superheroes in it. All right. Let's talk about honorable mentions or movies that I wanted to have on the list.
Yeah.
Yours are different because I think some of yours are related to like actual release date. Mine are I just didn't have enough room on my list.
Yeah. I have both.
Okay. Speaking of Marvel, Kraven. I didn't realize that was coming out this year.
I also have that on my list.
Dude, the trailer looks fucking cool. Yeah. I am pumped for that. That is going to be awesome. I had Rebel Moon as my other honorable mention, or one we just talked about that. But there's another movie that you won't know and you'll have no idea what it's about, but it's an A24 movie. So previous Best Picture production company. Right? They won Best Picture with like
everything everywhere all at once. It's an A24 movie.
But they make all these weird movies.
They just make weird movies.
Yes, but they're really good quality and really original good movies in an uncomfortable way. Anyways, the movie is called The Iron Claw, and it is about the Von Erichs wrestling family from back in like the 60s and 70s. But the family, like not a people or 60s, 70s,
Is there a trailer
80s.
out? Is there a trailer out?
I believe that the trailer is out.
Then I've seen it. Go ahead, continue.
So the Von Erichs are like in a famous / infamous. They're like one of the most famous wrestling families ever because they're generational. But they had a bunch of people that were in the WWF. They were well known all over the country, but also like 5 out of the 6 of them killed themselves at different points in their life. And so like there's a ton, like they were looked at as, some of them like Kerry, I think, were looked at to be like the great, going to be the next Hulk Hogan, and then they ended up not. And also that one of them had one leg, was missing a foot, the one that was wrestling in the WWF, but nobody knew. He had hidden that he only had one foot with fake foot. So anyways, it looks good. It's being made by one of the like up and coming new hotness production companies. So I think it's going to be good, not because it's a wrestling movie, but because like there's some serious cool stuff you can do with it. So
I've heard about this movie and I've seen stills from it. I don't think there's been a trailer yet from what I'm looking at. And it doesn't have a firm date yet. Like it just says late 2023. So,
I was gonna say, I thought for sure that it was 2023.
Yeah, that's what it says. It's just they haven't locked down a day. So
I didn't know about that till the other day when I was kind of cruising through and we were looking at.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures of Zac Efron getting ready for it, and he's gigantic.
Yes, he is fucking huge, huge. Cool. Those are my side hustle movies. I think you've got probably 2 or 3.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had Craven on mine too. We talked about this before. It was actually, I think, my 6 to Midnight one episode. It looks fantastic. It looks hyper violent. And it's, because that was when we were like, can we get a Spider-Man villain in a Spider-Man movie? And so we talked about that. I did have Dune 2 on that. It was hard not to put in the top 5, but I really wanted to get the other movies in there. And then the Aquaman should be released in December. I'm excited for the second Aquaman. I think I liked the first one. There's been some stories lately about some reshoots and some problems, so we'll see. There was a rumor going around that Affleck was originally in the movie as Batman, and because of what they did with the Flash and the James Gunn takeover, they had to take him out and they had to reshoot some stuff. So,
that sounds like the Flash and what they did with other characters and actors.
Yeah. So it sounds like
interesting.
Well, did you hear? And I know we're going to go off on a little thing here because we can't go an episode without talking about the Flash. Did you hear the rumor that
I finally got it digitally and rewatched it, and the CG sucks. However, sucks. I will say they did a good job with the emotional like stuff at the end. Like again, it got me teared up. So anyways, for a shitty movie, they do a good job of invoking emotion. Lots of emotion.
There was this rumor that like originally the end of Michael Keaton there was supposed to be more Michael Keaton, and it was supposed to lead into a Batman Beyond film. Did you hear this?
I did know that it was weird because like how they announced that basically like if this movie was successful, we were going to do a Batman Beyond movie. It almost felt like they were blaming the fans.
We touched on that a little bit, I think, because there was early rumors that like they were going to do more with Michael Keaton. Well, then there was some rumors that it was Batman Beyond, and then there's some rumors that say that Aquaman was going to lead into it, and that's the part that they had to get him and Affleck out of it. I don't know how much of it's true. It could just be people shitting on the DC again. I'm all for that.
I love DC, but I could give a fuck about the Aquaman movie coming out. The last one we watched was fucking like not an exciting character. It's anyways.
That's fair.
I I still forget that they're still coming out with those movies.
Right. Well, they were already
what? They
already started making them, before all that went down.
Does it start with him in the puddle after the flash, like in his home on the street?
When you watched it on digital, did you watch that scene again?
I didn't get to that part.
Good for you.
I think, yeah, I didn't watch the after credits scene.
And then I had two more. I had Deadpool 3 on here because they had originally said they were going to move that release date up to late this year because they were moving stuff around. I don't think that's going to happen still. I think that's going to end up being May, right? Like, I think that's going to get pushed back because I know they were working on that. And then the Untitled Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel was supposed to come out around Christmas this year, and we don't even have a title. I think it's wrapped filming, so maybe, but I would imagine we'll see a trailer to that soon if it's going to happen. Like I would think. So we're at the end of July, right? Like, so we're getting down to the summer movie season's, it's about wrapped up, right? We got probably 3 solid weeks left. Usually the end of August it's done, right? And then there'll be a little at the end at Labor Day when like Equalizer comes out. And anyway, so I would bet if there's a trailer for that movie coming, it's either going to be next week with Haunted Mansion or the week after with Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
that's my thoughts on it. But anyway, I had those were. It's a lot. There's
a lot of good movies coming out, and this is going to be a good year. I'm excited.
It is.
So.
It is going to be a good year. And the thing I'm going to say about it is that I think is important is Marvel and DC are not having a good year, and there's a lot of other good movies out there. But I would stress this to people, like, go see movies, take advantage of this. Like these movies that look like they're good coming out the beginning of next year, it might be rough. Like we might not have much.
We're going to be doing a lot of watching old shows and catching up on things that we never watched because there's not going to be a lot of new content. Sweet. I think those were good lists. I'm excited. Those are good movies.
It's a good list. So with Oppenheimer coming out, and we talked about how good Nolan's catalog of movies is, I felt like we needed to do a top 5 Nolan movies. I think we'll have very similar lists. Yeah. The order is where I'm curious to see where things come in, right? So there are movies that I have a hard time not having on this list.
Same.
Because he's got so many damn good movies, right?
Well, let's put it correctly. He doesn't have that many movies, but all of his movies are good. And so
that is correct.
It's kind of like Star Wars. Like there's like 12 or 14 to pick from, and there's 7 that you feel like are in the top 5.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a tough list because you're leaving something out, and I had to make it strictly 5, and I was like, because otherwise I was going to have like 4 ties, and I don't think that's fair because then I'm trying to get every movie in. So
I already know what movie is going to be your like. Maybe you have it in your top 5, but one that I struggled with of like, oh, I need to have that in the list. How do I do that?
Yeah,
but I know it's partial to you too. So, anyways, tell me your list.
Yeah, so at number 5, this was the one I was really hard up for which one I wanted to have here because like 5 and 6 are like this, and I went with Interstellar at number 5.
Oh,
and I had a hard time. And I'm just going to say the other one that I had, it was Batman Begins was the other one, and I really had a hard time.
That was the one I was just talking about. That was the movie I was just talking about.
I really had a hard time leaving Batman Begins off that list because if I'm going to go, if I had those 2 movies in front of me and I'm just going to go mindlessly watch a movie, I'm going to go watch Batman Begins. There's no doubt about it. But I feel like I think I like Interstellar better, and I think it's the better movie. I think we talked, we texted each other last week about another one of his movies and how sometimes I think they're just not seen in the right light. And like, when you look at like critical scores and audience scores on Interstellar, it's not near as high as his other movies. It's a fantastic film. It's very sciencey. I think that's where it gets lost is because it's because of that. And that's not the film's fault. It's not for everybody. Let's just put it that
way. It's whatever your steez is that you can lean towards. What I think when we're talking about like movies of like, that's a better movie, but what am I going to put on and watch more often?
That's why I had a hard time with these two, because I will say I would put Batman Begins on more often, but I like Interstellar's got to be at number 5. So number 4, the introduction to mainstream for Christopher Nolan, Memento, is at number 4. I have to, because it's such an original idea. Listen, like you look at the cast, like Guy Pearce and Carrie-Anne Moss are so phenomenal in this movie. Guy Pearce is so like conflicted in this movie. Basically, if you've never seen Memento, it's his first like feature length mainstream movie. It was the first Christopher Nolan movie I ever saw, because when this movie came out, I was like, oh, this looks interesting, I have to see it. Basically, it's a guy that has he has no long-term memory. Like every day is a new day to him. He has tattoos that like tell him like he's trying to figure out who killed his wife, and people take advantage of him because of his memory thing. And it's this big, long, interconnected, very complicated kind of backstory, but it's really well done. It's really cool. It's an awesome movie. If you've never seen Memento, you really need to. So I had that at number 4. And number 3, I had Oppenheimer. I put it at number 3.
Nice.
1, 2, and 3 are very close to each other. Oppenheimer's at number 3. We went into all the reasons why. It's an epic. He's probably going to win his first Best Picture, I would imagine, in my opinion. Again, I know it's only July and this movie just came out, but man, he nailed it. At number 2, I had The Dark Knight.
You and I have the same number 1.
Dude, I don't know if we do. Maybe.
I bet we do.
So Dark Knight's at number 2. Listen, it's like we've talked about how great it is as a comic book movie, how great it is as a detective movie. Like it's again the Heath Ledger and Christian Bale and Gary Oldman, and it's fantastic. It's such a good movie. It's so.
We don't have the same number 1. I just realized there's a movie I didn't think about. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so anyway, the Dark Knight, and how good it is. It could be number 1. Like, don't get me wrong, but number 1, and this is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. It's critically acclaimed. It's probably not your number 1. My number 1 is Inception. It's my favorite Nolan movie. I love that movie so much. I think it's so well done. It's the acting, the set pieces, the cinematography. That movie it's a masterclass in cinema in its own right. And it's totally different. Like, that was one of the first like mainstream movies where people met Tom Hardy. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that, and Cillian Murphy. And he wasn't a huge name at the time either. Like this was a Leo and like Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie, and Elliot Page, right? And
also a guy from Last Samurai was in it too.
Yeah, Ken Watanabe. It's the cast is fantastic, and the story is amazing. Wow, it blows me away. I haven't watched it in a while, and gosh, just like watching Oppenheimer, I'm like, man, I need to watch Inception again.
Yeah. Love that. That is the movie that just made me go, ooh, never mind. We don't have the same number 1 because I forgot.
So your number 1,
so
I think I know what your number 1 is then.
I think you're probably, maybe. I've switched it 3 times since we've started. So, okay. Love your list. I love those movies. Memento is not one that I was expecting, but I can see why you would have that. It is a great movie and is very original. Tied for number 6, my honorable mention, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. Those two, they have to be mentioned, but they are not.
You put all the movies on the list.
Yeah, I put fucking 7 of the 8 of them. Okay, so number 5, I did have Oppenheimer. This is not recency bias.
Number 5.
Yeah, not recency bias, but I think it is one of his best movies, if not it is his best, like, piece of cinema that he has made, but it is not my favorite movie in terms of what else he has. And also, I put a lot of weight in like my favorites in relation to if I want to go watch them. Like when I'm putting two movies next to him, like what am I going to go sit and watch?
When we're
that
done,
one or this one?
When we're done, I want you to tell me his two worst movies.
Okay, perfect. I actually can do that. So number 5 is Oppenheimer. Number 4, The Dark Knight. It was actually kind of tough to not have this higher on the list because I am a Batman fan and I love Batman, and this is a seminal Batman movie that will live on for the rest of time. But in terms of like quality of movie, these other 3 are above them. So I do love The Dark Knight. I love it, but it is his number 4. Number 3, I had Inception. I also love that movie. There's a lot going on in that, and not just from a like, all right, it's a dream within a dream within a dream. That's not what I'm talking about. But like the score in that movie is one of the greatest scores of all time. The main theme is like plays in. I've got playlists that plays all the time. There's a lot of again, we talk about this like grief and loss and how to deal with that, and there's a lot of heavy stuff in this movie about trying to get back, family and making decisions, having to turn your back on someone who is your family that you love more than anything, but you clearly know there's something wrong. Talking about him and his wife, when she was like going cuckoo. It's so good. I love the whole, we've lived a lifetime in this dream, but it's only been a second in the real life. Like, I've got to go back for our kids and she wants to stay because this is perfect. And then they don't know what world they're in. It's so fucking good. So that is my number 3 movie. Number 2 and number 1, I have switched 14 times because one of them I think is the better movie, but the other one is the movie that I enjoy watching the most. So I've got my number 2 movie as Interstellar, which I did originally have Interstellar listed as my number 1 because I fucking love Interstellar. It is such a good movie. I just talked about like grief, loss, family, how to deal with it, like having to go on and do things for the betterness of your family or humankind and all that stuff. Like sci-fi, space, that's my jam. I will love like the score is the best movie score ever. A Cornfield Chase is a song that plays on my playlist all the time. So freaking good. I fucking love Interstellar. And that is a movie that I will put on all the time. Like, if I want to put a movie on in the background, that is in the top 2 of what I would normally pick. It's so freaking good. And then my number 1, which nobody will have this as their number 1, but to me, this is a masterpiece movie of his. It's The Prestige. I fucking love The Prestige. Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale as like lifelong enemies who are essentially the same person trying to become the world's most famous magician, but then like they each take it one further than the other, and like there's a huge plot twist at the end that is like so good. Michael Caine is amazing in it. Christian Bale, nobody talks about it, but this is one of Christian Bale's best movies ever, and I would argue Hugh Jackman as well, one of his best movies. It's a lot of it. I would say not a lot of people know that The Prestige is a Christopher Nolan movie or talk about it when they're talking about Christopher Nolan movies, but it is a perfect movie. It's like, it's got that suspense. It's got mystery. It's a little scary. It's a period piece, which is very much my like kind of jam, very like Sherlock Holmes kind of vibes. It's so good. That's a movie that like that's one of those movies that I always make sure like when I'm talking to friends, that's when I'm like, you have to see The Prestige if you haven't seen The Prestige. It's so good. And if you haven't seen that movie in a long time, go watch it.
Yeah, that's the movie you and I were texting about.
Yep.
The other day. It was hard for me to leave it off the list as well.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. Listen, like if I would watch. I don't know if I would watch Memento over. I'd watch The Prestige. I like Memento for what it is, and it's totally different because it was made with like no money, and it's
and he wasn't Christopher Nolan.
No,
he was
wasn't,
just a guy making a movie.
Right. The Prestige is highly underrated, and we talked about this. We were texting each other about The Prestige and how it's not viewed in the same light as his other movies, though it should be. And
yes,
I think it was in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the movie he made in between those. So like, I think when Batman Begins, like Christopher Nolan was. Like he was this up and comer, right? At that point, I think still when Batman Begins.
2006 was The Prestige. It was right before The Dark Knight. So you are right.
So like Batman Begins had come out and everybody had seen Batman Begins. And like, I like Batman Begins a lot more than a lot of people, but I think everybody realized like we got the right guy making Batman movies. And then this came out and I think a lot of people went and saw it because they're like, oh, it's the Batman guy. Does that make sense? Because people probably hadn't seen Memento or Insomnia yet. And like, that's why. And then they saw this and they're like, what the hell is this? And I think that's why it got lost in there. And then all of a sudden, he starts making these movies like Inception and Interstellar and
I think The Dark Knight, I don't think when people saw Batman Begins, like just the general moviegoer, he still was not at that like, oh, this is a Christopher Nolan. Yep. People were like, okay, that was a Batman movie that it was good, but like, I don't know if that's what I was expecting of Batman. Right. And so a lot of people not necessarily hated it, but they were indifferent on it until years later when they look back of like, actually, this was a fucking phenomenal movie.
Right.
It was The Dark Knight that kind of, oh shit.
He hit his
Christopher
stride,
Nolan's
right?
man.
Like,
yes,
he hit his stride.
And then Inception came out where like, this dude is a fucking home
that
run
came
hitter.
out. I think that came out between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. I think Inception came out between those two. And that was when people were like, holy shit. Because I think
like this dude is a fucking epic movie maker.
Right, because Inception was nominated for a whole bunch of awards, including Best Picture. Dark Knight should have been, but Inception was. And again, that in my opinion, that was the best movie that came out that year. So it should have won.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of movies, but he has pretty much nothing but good movies.
Yes, that makes sense. They all are. Like, so I was going to ask you your two worst. So my two worst, I was surprised that neither one of us had Dunkirk on there, which I think is surprising, but I guess it's not because of the kind of movies we like. I mean, in Dunkirk, my buddy Matt was over as I was doing this list too, and he had suggested Dunkirk, and I was like, it's not really in my top 5. I mean, it was a good movie, but it's a phenomenal movie. We talked about it last week when we were talking about Fishman.
It was a one and done for me. Like, watched it. I don't need to go back. It felt more like a companion piece to that other movie that came out about Winston Churchill. That
Darkest Hour.
Yeah, that which was great. Nothing wrong with that. But Tenet is by far the worst fucking Christopher Nolan movie. Like,
it is, and it's not a bad movie at all. It's just it's a very
perfect. It's a very what was that like? I felt like it was a big swing and a miss. And it was
bad.
the first time. I feel like that was the first time that Christopher Nolan made a movie where I was like, oh, I don't,
here's the way I thought as I saw it, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever watch that again. Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, I am only saying this because, like, out of all these other movies, I don't think this is at the same level. Obviously, because I don't watch it, but Memento was my other one of my, like, and more just because that what like he was just getting started out. He's nowhere near the level of quality of movie as these others. It's not an epic, and that's my favorite part about him and his movies is that they're epic.
That's fair. Yeah, this was at the beginning when he wasn't signed on to make epic movies yet, right?
Yeah.
My second, so Tenet, yeah, I agree. Tenet's the bottom one for sure. There's no doubt about it. The other one that I've really is Insomnia. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Listen, it's a good movie. It's a cool crime movie. Like Robin Williams is fucking psycho as a bad guy in that movie.
Crazy.
My biggest beef with that movie is Al Pacino.
Said no one ever. Just in general about Al Pacino.
Here's the deal. Like, listen, man, I'm going to stir something up here. Al Pacino, as he's gotten older, isn't what he used to be. Like after Son of a Woman and Heat.
Godfather 3.
That I'm not even blaming him for Godfather 3. It wasn't his fault.
I liked Godfather 3.
I don't think it's bad. The problem with Godfather 3 is the first two. It's light years worse. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I just think the stuff he's done, like in the last 20 years, it's just not. It's not very good. That's my opinion.
For sure.
Like Al Pacino is one of the greatest American actors. I own and love Dog Day Afternoon. Godfather 1 and 2 are
fucking amazing.
Son of a Woman is amazing. Like, listen, the guy's Dick Tracy. It was awesome, right?
I forget about Dick Tracy.
I like Al Pacino. I didn't care for him in Insomnia, and so I have a problem with that movie because he's the main character. That's it.
I get that.
It'd be like there's people out there that don't like Leonardo DiCaprio. I could see him having problems with Inception because of him.
For sure. I get that 100%.
But I like Leo, so.
Leo. I only didn't like Leo when the Titanic came out because I was like in elementary school and it was cool to hate the popular.
A lot of people didn't like Leo back then, though. And the reason I never understood it is, have you ever seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Yes, I have seen that. Not a lot of people know about that movie.
Damn, Leo could act from the get-go.
Fucking good.
Holy cow.
Old Depp.
That movie's not great. It's weird.
Super weird.
Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio are fantastic in that movie.
Yeah.
If you've never seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, watch it for those two. Like, Johnny Depp's like in his 20s? Leo's like
they're all super young.
Teenager in that movie. Yeah. It's wild. It's a good movie. He's awesome. His best movie is Django, in my opinion. He's so freaking good in that movie. Like how he lost an Oscar to the guy that was across from him at that table during that scene. Like, have you ever seen that? I don't remember the stand-up comedian where he's talking about Leo DiCaprio using the N-word in front of Jamie Foxx. And Samuel L. Jackson standing behind him, and he's like, he is courageous. And I don't remember who the comedian was, but he's talking about how courageous he was for doing that. But
Jamie Foxx has some clips of him talking about how how timid Leo was about it because he didn't want to be racist, and then Jamie Foxx was like, "No, that's property. You need to be like that." And he's like, so the next day Leo comes in. I'm like, "What's up, Leo?" And he just doesn't even look at me. Just keeps walking. It's like, he's cold.
You ever see the story about where he smashes his hand down and he actually broke the glass?
And they used the scene.
And he sliced his hand open and he rubs the blood on Kerry Washington's face, and that was like he had really cut his hand, and it wasn't in the script, and they're like, we're rolling with it because it's amazing.
That movie is really not necessarily underrated, but I don't think people talk about that like they should. It's a fucking awesome movie.
There's another guy that just hits doubles, in my opinion.
Yes. I love his movies. Freaking Hateful Eight was good too.
Yeah, it is. Tarantino just makes good movies, and this is like one of my favorite Tarantino movies is Jackie Brown. Have you ever seen that? It like came out after Pulp Fiction. Oh, it's fantastic. So funny story. So Jackie Brown's like a man. It's Pam Grier's in it, and Robert Forster, Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda, like Samuel L. Jackson, of course, is in it. It's like a contemporary crime. Like it's about drugs and gun smuggling and stuff like that. But it's really good. Michael Keaton's in it.
Oh, nice.
And he plays in Jackie Brown the exact same character he plays in the movie Out of Sight.
Fascinating.
Which is not a Tarantino movie and has nothing to do with Jackie Brown, but they're both they're both based on stories by Elmore Leonard. So and they cast him in Out of Sight after he did Jackie Brown as the exact same character, which I thought was awesome. I always thought that was a cool story because he plays the exact same character. Yeah,
that is awesome.
Anyway, that's it. That takes us to the end of this week's episode 15 of the Movie Dads podcast, the Christopher Nolan epic Oppenheimer. Go see it in IMAX or any other large format. It's phenomenal.
It was great.
We're back next week. Kyle, we're prepping for Mutant Mayhem.
Let's go.
We have a special double feature next week. Are you excited?
Oh, I'm so freaking stoked.
Your favorite?
I am prepped and ready.
Next
for
week,
this freaking movie.
Double feature. The original live action 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Greatest comic book movie of all time.
And
best, most successful independent film ever to hit theaters.
And its sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
Secret of the Ooze.
We're not going to watch the third one.
No, it doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Yeah. We're pretty excited for that as we get ready for Mutant Mayhem the following week. That'll be episode 16, TMNT, Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
If you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on a podcast service, please do the same. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index. Give us a like, give us a follow on social media at Movie Dads Pod. That's it for the episode. We will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.